Hey, everybody, welcome to SIPPIO Live. This is our weekly takeover of the SIPPIO social media accounts, and we're going to share some news, talk to some interesting guests. And this week, it's all about Microsoft. Oh, sorry, I almost lost you there. Microsoft Ignite. Um, Microsoft made some really amazing announcements yesterday about Teams and Teams Phone specifically for our little slice of the world, and that's where I want to start. So this is what's in the news. And yesterday I was invited to have a discussion with Channel Futures. I was interviewed by my friend Moshe Buford to talk about my takeaways from Ignite and specifically what this means for channel partners. And that's what I want to park on right now is I want to talk about the opportunity for channel partners that frankly a lot of you are missing out there. Microsoft Teams is too often seen as an obstacle to overcome when you're trying to sell UCaaS instead of being seen as the opportunity that it really is. There's no secret. The momentum in the UCaaS space has been slowing. All of the suppliers are under price pressures. It's become a giant sea of sameness. Everybody offers a lot of the same features. And increasingly, in my experience, partners are constantly coming to the UCaaS supplier saying, how does this integrate with Teams? My customer has Teams. How do I sell this to a customer that's got Teams? This is why you see Teams as an obstacle and not an opportunity, because you're focused on integrating with Teams instead of focusing on how do I accelerate Teams. Now, a lot of you don't sell Teams. A lot of you, may not necessarily sell licensing from the Microsoft side, but there's still a tremendous opportunity for you to take advantage of the fact that Microsoft Teams is the dominant platform that's deployed by almost any business on the planet. Microsoft reported there are around 300 million monthly active users of Microsoft Teams, but there's less than 20 million of those seats activated for outbound telephony calling. Tremendous opportunity for partners, but you're all trying to smack a square peg into a round hole. You're trying to sell a UCaaS service with messaging and video and phone to a customer who's already got a messaging and video solution picked out. So stop trying to sell somebody a cheeseburger when all they want is a slice of cheese for the hamburger that they've got. Adoption of Teams Phone continues to grow exponentially. At last peg, it was around 45% year over year growth. And now Microsoft is doing channel partners a giant favor. With the launch of Copilot, they are pouring kerosene on a bonfire of demand. And this is very much a pull sale, not a push sale. You're not trying to talk to your customer about why they should replace one platform with another and trying to push a solution in. This is very much a pull sale. Your customers are adopting Copilot because it's a thick layer of icing that spreads across the entire Microsoft Office suite. They're going to be using AI for some really amazing things in Word to help create copy. They're going to be using it in PowerPoint to help create more compelling slides. We're going to be using it in Outlook. We're going to be using it in Teams for meeting summaries and task management. But if you haven't moved phone to that platform, you're not taking maximum advantage of the Copilot entitlement that you buy. Because if you keep voice separated on a lonely legacy phone system, you're not taking advantage of these key benefits when your sales reps are on phone calls, having those phone calls summarized, having action items tracked, having follow-up emails auto-generated for you. And organizations see this. So as a channel partner, it's a lot easier to take advantage of demand that somebody else is generating for you. Microsoft is creating the spark. You've just got to fan the fire. So you've got to focus on the customer and deliver simplicity to them. And this is the opportunity for channel partners to stand out because it's really complicated. As a customer, I'm sitting here saying, I just want to turn on Teams Phone. Why can't I just turn on Teams Phone? But at the same time, they're greeted by different channel partners saying, well, you should use this UCaaS offer and try and integrate it. Or they're saying, hey, I've got a way to turn that on. You want Teams Phone. I want to sell you direct routing. Direct routing is a service, Operator Connect, calling plans. There's a million different options out there for doing it, and customers can be easily confused. So if you're a channel partner, take advantage of the team's opportunity. Stop seeing it as an obstacle. Start looking at it as an opportunity to capitalize on. Recognize the fact that Microsoft is creating demand that you can just gobble up and create a simplified message to the end customer. They want to turn on Teams Phone. You have the ability to turn on Teams Phone. Meet them where they are, and you will grow through the roof, and you will capitalize an unreasonable share in this growth space. So, with that in mind, Ignite, has created a whole host of new capabilities that expands your market to new customers that you can bring on to this platform, that you can start to position Microsoft Teams for. And this week's guest is one of my colleagues, Ted Stoochberry. He's the Director of Cloud Communications, both pre and post sale at SIPPIO. And I'd like to invite him to join the show. Ted?
Thanks, Steve. Really excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, don't be too awkward joining, right? We're both taking over the corporate account here. I'm sure
exactly.
Adam and others are watching. So why don't you just kind of share, what do you do for SIPPIO? What do you, but everybody else doesn't. So why don't you walk everybody through it?
So as the Director of Cloud Communications, kind of nebulous, but pre and post sales, I really work, my team are kind of the pre-sales engineers working with the sales team to really help partners and customers understand the journey that they're on in terms of how you can migrate to Teams, what advantages you'll have when using Teams and Teams Phone. And then, of course, and that's from a pre-sales perspective. Then from a post-sales perspective, we really try to keep that momentum going with the partner, with the customer. So my team also helps with the onboarding of those customers, making sure all questions are answered, make sure proper number assignments and porting are done within the SIPPIO environment. So that's kind of my team tries to cover that window of kind of that as you're deciding on the sale, and then as you're implementing that work.
Yeah, I mean, we say to partners, or I say to partners, SIPPIO makes it simple. We're fast, we're easy, we're flexible. Your team is actually the bridge from showing the solution and getting the solution running, because ultimately we know that when a partner hands a customer over to a supplier, that's where they're kind of walking the tightrope, and that's the risk. They're the trusted advisor. They've put their kind of credibility to say SIPPIO is the right solution for you. You want to turn on Teams Phone, SIPPIO is the right solution. Your team is the one that actually delivers on that promise to make sure that the customer sees the value, and frankly the partner retains that trusted advisor status. Nobody wants to make a bad referral in any phase of life, right? If I share my painter's contact information, he does a bad job somewhere else, that looks bad on me. And it's the same type of thing. We really kind of make sure we bridge that gap, which is really different. So Ignite, I don't know about you, I saw a ton of stuff at Ignite. Let's just dive into it. What was the feature that was announced for Teams Phone that you are kind of seeing and saying, hey, this really gets me excited?
Yeah, so being in telephony a long time, working with UCAS for a long time, working with PBXs for a long time, Copilot is awesome. And don't get me wrong, I'm not going to take anything away from Copilot.
We're going to be talking Copilot.
We're going to talk a lot about Copilot, but some of the Copilot kind of sometimes takes away from all of the features that Microsoft is delivering for Teams Phone. And there is quite a gamut that are coming out, both out now and will be released later this year or early next year. One of the big things for me, and again, it's not exactly sexy, but it really opens the markets, are things like the two things. Like one of them is shared line appearance, and that this again is from an executive standpoint. So shared line appearance and private lines. Executive admin capabilities, right? This, you've got your CEOs, your CFOs, your CTOs, who all have their admins. So you're a large enterprise. They've got certain ways of doing their business. They've got certain ways of taking calls, making calls, getting people on the line. and it was one of those. It's one of those features that, while seems simple, is incredibly hard to implement. And we've seen just over the history, implementations of this that were clunky, kludgy, et cetera. And so the fact that Microsoft's getting into the game and being able to do this, again, removes a barrier and removes a C-suite barrier from adoption for Teams Phone, right?
Yeah.
In other words, they're going to see that I can do this now, and so
And I
that's
think that's
the first
key.
one.
Yeah, and I think that's key. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about expanding the market.
Yeah,
You start with kind of the core use cases that you built. And the thing
yeah,
Microsoft has done with Teams Phone is they didn't just say, what's the bullet list of 700 some odd features with these
no,
legacy phone systems that have been around since the 80s, and we just got to copy that. They're literally saying, what does the future of work look like, and
yeah,
what does the tools that are required to do that work, what do they need to have in them? And then
yeah,
they just keep adding layer by layer by layer. And I think you and I were talking about this. One of the key takeaways I see is Microsoft is basically saying, we're going to keep expanding and expanding and expanding the marketplace for customers to grow onto Teams Phone. There's a lot of reasons why somebody may look at it and go, yeah, I'd love to, but I just can't because of this thing or this workflow or this feature that's just not there. And Microsoft seems to be addressing that very, very quickly.
absolutely. And that's really a tie into the second one that I think is, again, not sexy at all, but oh my God, is it expanding the market? And that's their advancements of the SIP gateways
Mm-hmm.
and the analog capabilities. So before you had the SIP gateway had a number of phones, right? And you were really it was really a knowledge worker
Yeah.
solution, right? I
Yep.
mean, and that's where they started. They started as a knowledge worker solution. Skype for Business, Teams, it's all business, it's all about the knowledge worker. As they expand this, I mean, this expansion into paging systems,
Mm-hmm.
direct connection to paging systems. So, door phones and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And also into the analog devices. So you can now connect up your Cisco or AudioCodes ATAs and have them connect up. I was
Yeah,
mentioning
I mean,
earlier.
look, let's face it, the world still uses analog. There is
Yes,
still a ton of use cases for analog out
yeah,
there. And that was one of those kind of, I'd love to go to Teams, but I can't.
I can't
And
exactly.
you're working with a customer in the education space, and I was thinking about taking my daughter on tour of university. And one of the things
Yeah,
that they pointed out was in the parking lot, you're never more than X feet away from
blue
a
phones.
blue terminal.
Yeah,
Most of those are analog.
they are.
So a university campus who's adopted Microsoft in pretty much every other way, they couldn't move to Teams Phone because that would be a nightmare to support.
Yeah.
Now you're talking to a customer and it's not the case, right?
Yeah, and the audio codes has a 1280 sorry, a 288 port gateway. And I'm going to visit a university this week, and we're going to sit down and talk about they this was the last barrier. This was their last barrier. Now it's gone. They're acquiring the hardware, and they're moving everything to Teams. And so all the classroom phones now are just going to be Teams
Yeah.
enabled.
And I
And
know,
the other piece there is again, it's these markets. So the healthcare is one, or sorry, the universities are one, and education is one. The other is they've added ASCOMs and these types of devices that are used heavily in the healthcare markets, hospitals,
sure.
right? And now again, it's that edge case like you're talking about, Steve. It's hitting these different markets that you can now go to. So analog with patient room phones, ASCOM with the nurse stations and nurse phones. Again, you're just targeting these areas that now, well, your whole back end is using Teams. Now, how about your front end?
Yeah. And here's the other thing. And history has a tendency to repeat itself. And I know a lot of the folks that are in my LinkedIn network, that are on my, Twitter feed, they're, they're administrators of a different brand. Let's just leave it at that, right? And there's this kind of fear that if my organization moves to Teams Phone instead of the PBX that I manage, I'm going to be out of a job. And that's just not the case.
No.
There's so many of these elements of Teams Phone that aren't in the Teams admin center. I mean, yes, you can, manage a user there, but you're going to be starting to kind of blossom out into a lot of other areas. And the skill sets that the traditional PBX administrator has is going to be just as valuable moving forward as it was then. It reminds me so much of the discussion about I can't move to cloud. I'm an Exchange administrator. If my server's not on premise, nobody's going to need me.
Yeah.
Well, the CFO has no interest in managing users, whether they're on a server that's in the cloud or a server that's in the closet. And I think a lot of our IT friends have kind of realized that, that was a bit of a myth. And I
Yeah.
think this is going to be the next myth that gets busted is that, if my organization moves to Teams Phone, that's an existential threat to my existence here because I'm managing this thing that looks like a refrigerator that sits in a special room that needs special tools to plug in special phones. You have more value than that.
Yeah.
And I think you're seeing that. And I
Yeah.
think one of the areas that, was growing, you mentioned it earlier, is Copilot. And
Mhm.
this to me is a giant area to get ahead of because Copilot is going to totally change the game.
Yeah.
And I talked about this a few minutes ago. For channel partners, this is the kerosene that's going to get poured on the fire that is demand. Because you're going to have inbound requests from CIOs saying, how do I move to Teams Phone? Because I've got to get better value of Copilot. Copilot changes what a phone call actually is, right? But there's going to be a lot of room for educating the end user base on exactly how do you best leverage Copilot. Some of this stuff will be transparent. It's going to do meeting summaries for you. It's going to do phone call summaries at the end of calls. But how do you really become a Copilot ninja, so to speak, to
Mm.
really squeeze the productivity and really make work a heck of a lot less work? I don't know about you, but some of what they showed for AI in general, Copilot and others, really was exciting.
Well, yeah. Like you said, like meeting summaries, action items out of meetings and stuff. They've shown that, and that, to be honest, that this is going to be it's a game. It is
I
a
need it
game.
today. I need
I
it
know.
now.
I need that now because I was mentioned earlier. Like, how many times are you on a meeting? You just hold on a second. Let me take that note. Let me take that note, and
Yep.
then you potentially lose some of your thought because you're sitting there. I got to write that down because it's important, and then you're kind of losing that train of thought, losing that momentum because you got to do that. That's a thing of the past, right? But the other thing is, and one of the things that they shown was that Copilot's also there as a teammate, right? So asking Copilot, hey, what have we missed? What else do we need to think about? What, as another team member that's on that call potentially, to just, it's aggregated the call. It's got that information. It's got everything, and now it's providing input.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, have you thought of this? Hey, have you thought of that? Right? Those will be, again, really cool things that just add to the value of this, and it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how all this plays out as we start using it more and more.
Yeah, and Copilot is, I don't want to say becoming the Kleenex to tissue because I think when everybody talks about AI with Teams, it's Copilot, but they're doing some really other interesting stuff with AI. I found the voice isolation feature
Mm,
is going to be really interesting.
yeah.
So one of the key differentiators for the platform I used to, sell was, hey, no background noise removal. Background noise removal. I did a really fun video that showed, getting rid of music while I was on a phone call. That's really impressive. But the AI has to kind of figure out what's background noise, what's actually, the voice I need to hear. And what Microsoft's doing is they're tuning their AI to learn my voice. So it's not even, and it'll be more efficient, more effective because if I'm in a noisy airport, it's not just cutting out what it thinks is background noise. It's basically getting rid of anything except for my voice. And granted, my voice kind of sounds like Linus, but you know, it will really amplify that and super powerful even in a mobile environment. I mean, to me, that just was like,
Yeah. It's going to learn. It's going to learn about you, right? And it's going to say, I know you now, and yeah, those environments are just going to. It's just going to change, right? And that's that. It's that next level of that background suppression. It's now not so much background suppression. It's picking you as the only sound I
yep,
want to put through. right? And that is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically saying this is what matters, and that's what
Yeah.
Microsoft's really doing with, these new features with Copilot. Is they're changing the game to say, hey, you don't need 700 something features from a legacy phone system. We're giving you the features and the functionalities that matter, that help you increase productivity, help you decrease cost.
Yeah, I mean, it really looks like they are looking at those segments and saying,
Hmm.
what, like you say, it's not a pick list. What does this segment need, right? Let's get it. Let's get those pieces in. Now, what does this segment need? Let's get those
Hmm.
pieces in. And they're doing it methodically, and they're doing it. What I really like again is you're seeing features and you're seeing great features at a very rapid pace, right? And so they're coming in, and sometimes you know about them, sometimes you don't even know about them, and all of a sudden,
Hmm.
boom, it's there, right? There's a new feature. Yeah, I mean, just looking at the SIP gateway, you almost got to look at that list of devices on the SIP gateway on a weekly basis or monthly basis, just to know what's the new stuff that came, because I didn't see the ASCOM announcement. Heck, I didn't even see the ATA announcement. We just saw that the ATAs are there, and like, oh wow, oh crap! Now we're gonna go test this stuff and make sure this works and test it. And sure enough, it's working. It's great. It's like, wow, right?
Yeah,
And learn these things, and it's just they just keep cranking and cranking and cranking, and that's what you want out of a platform that you're putting your money in, right? And you want to know that it's being updated and kept up to date.
yeah. I mean, look, it's no secret. The on-prem guys have said we're not adding any new features, we're not adding new capabilities to these phone systems. You're going to keep upgrading them so this way you can stay current with the underlying operating system, with security, right? That's a really kind of weak thing to sell if you're a channel partner, and frankly, it's a weak way to try and ask for a six-figure budget to upgrade when the software that you use on Monday after the upgrade will be exactly the same as the software you used on Friday. What's new? Why am I investing this money? So, looking at Teams Phone, if you're a partner for a solution to sell, it's dynamic. There's new stuff being added. Innovation is happening here. And again, if you're one of my friends who's a PBX administrator, it doesn't have to be something that you fear. There's a lot of opportunity for you to be just as valuable and frankly, even more so to your organization by leveraging and being ahead of this stuff and be better in sync with, your Microsoft admin who is managing Teams as kind of a side project. You can really add value. So I'm really excited. Ted, thank you for joining us here. So this was Ted Stoochbury. He's a peer of mine, great friend. Director of Cloud Communications, pre and post sale here at SIPPIO. Ted, thanks for
Thanks for
joining
having
us.
me, Steve.
Thanks. So that's this week's show. Feel free to leave us a comment. Drop a comment on the post here. Send us a direct message if you have ideas, if you have questions that you want to ask. If you'd like to join us as a guest, feel free to send us a direct message, leave a comment on the show, and make sure you turn on notifications so this way when we go live, you'll know when we go live. This is going to be a weekly show from us here at SIPPIO, talking about the news, inviting a guest to join us, and then hearing from you. So with that, this is Steve Forcum, Director of Program Management here at SIPPIO. Thanks for joining us this week on SIPPIO Live, and we'll see you next week.